Hi everyone, it's me. So as requested, I wanted to do a video about your first month in England. I do get a fair amount of questions from people who are interested in moving over here and they don't really know maybe what to expect, what to anticipate, some things that you should be researching, how to go about getting a house, like all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to go through, I got a bunch of notes, things that you should keep in mind when you're gonna move here, your first month, all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Most of my viewers here on YouTube are British, so this will mean literally nothing to you. But I will see you next week. Otherwise, if you're here and you're sticking around, how's it going? Get comfortable, this might be a long one. So let's just jump right in. Without further ado, let's go. Okay, I had to write some of this stuff down because there's so much and I absolutely will forget things. I know that. You should know that too. If you know me, I know that, you know that. We all know that. I'm gonna miss things. How about we start really brief, my own story, if you will. I moved to England from Canada end of 2015. I came over on a Tier 5 youth mobility visa. I did that for 2 years. Then I transferred to a partnership visa so I can live here with my English boyfriend. I am currently still on a partnership visa. I live in Kent, which is in the southeast of England. I specifically came to Kent because my boyfriend lives there. So, you know, everybody's always like, why Kent? Kent sucks. Didn't really have a choice now, did I? So all my suggestions and things to think about are going to come from my own experiences coming from Ontario to Kent. Okay, that's my disclaimer. Now the big one, I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast. I feel like this video is going to be really fast and I need to like speed it up. Okay, I'm real sorry if that's annoying. So the first thing to think about is where to live. Oh, maybe that's not... Okay, hold up, rewind, back up, 5 seconds. The thing I'm not gonna really go into are visas because A, it's really confusing and it is really specific to what country you're from and all the rest of it. So at this point, I am assuming you have already done your research and you can legally work in the UK on some type of visa, whether that's the Tier 5, whether that's an ancestry or a working visa, whatever. I'm going to assume you've already done that bit because you need to do that first. There's literally no point in getting your heart set on a country that doesn't want you. So figure out your visas first and then come back to this video. Okay, so now you can legally work in the UK. And I say the UK because most visas cover the UK as a whole. Like my Tier 5, I could live anywhere in the UK. However, I chose to be in the southeast of England. So while my experiences are focused on England because that's the only place that I've lived, technically for most visas you could be around the UK. So just a disclaimer, I might switch between England and the UK. People get very mad when I do that. I'm so sorry, go someplace else. So the first question is, where do you want to live? It's not a very big island, okay, but there are a lot of choices. The biggest thing I've noticed, at least with England, is the cost of living around England can really drastically differ from one place to the other. The south is more expensive than the north. However, the south, I think, we get a lot more sun. So is it worth it? I don't know. London obviously is the most expensive, and honestly, it's like one of the most expensive places to live in the world. It's unbelievable and it makes me feel sick just thinking about it. But if you get your heart set on London, I mean, you're gonna have to pinch those pennies. But, I mean, it's up to you, obviously. If you're coming here specifically because you were sponsored by a job, obviously this step doesn't really matter to you because you're gonna be forced to live near your new job anyway. But if you're coming to England or the UK just on an open-end type visa, you can live anywhere. Where do you go? Good question. I found from talking with other expats, London, Bristol, and Edinburgh are probably the most popular in the UK, which makes sense. They're larger cities, there's more opportunities, there's more nightlife, there's more people, so there's more, I guess is the main thing. However, obviously costs are more. So you really need to do your research in terms of, do you want a big city? Do you want a village? Do you want a town? Do you want to be house poor? Do you want to really, really spend a lot of money on expenses and rent and things, but live in a very vibrant area? Or do you want to live in maybe like a lower area? That's not what I meant. You know what I mean? Like, you need to do your research on where you want to live because the cost drastically varies. One of my one of my suggestions would be if you come over to the UK and before you do anything, if you have even like a week, 2 weeks, travel around the UK, go to the cities or the villages or the towns that you're kind of interested in and just spend time there and just see. Because you don't really know until you're in a place. And obviously you won't really know until you've lived somewhere for a while, but at least it gives you like a little taste of what that area is like. From my own experience, I didn't get to pick where I lived, obviously, because I came here for my boyfriend. But let's say, as an example, London. On paper, it is incredible. There is so much to do, so much to eat, so much to drink, some of the best free museums I've ever been to. The architecture is incredible. Every time I go to London, I see things that are new that I've never seen before, essentially. However, I could physically never ever live in London. And I know that just simply from visiting. If I go for the day, you know, maybe go with my girlfriends, we spend the day in London, maybe sleep over. By the end of the day or 2 days, I'm ready to leave. Because London, I find, is incredibly overwhelming. It's loud, it is crowded, it is busy, it is like sensory overload. But you really don't know that until you visit a place. So if at all possible, to travel around the UK, visit the cities that you're kind of interested in living before committing to it, just to give you a little bit of extra info that you're making the right decision, if you can. I realize not everybody can spend the money or the time doing that. Okay, so you've come to the UK, you've done some research into where you want to live. Now you need to find a flat. One of the main questions I get from people is, do you get a house first? Or do you get a job first? And that's a hard question. I look at it like this. What is more important? Is the neighborhood that you live in, the house, the flat, is that more important? Or is your job more important? Maybe you're in a very specialized field. Maybe your heart is set on having a certain type of career. Is that more important? So for me, my advice, my whatever, ramblings of a crazy lady, decide what is more important and do that one first. So if you are in a very specialized job, maybe you just came out of university and you really want to get into that field, so you're really pushing for the job, get the job first. So once you have that job settled, then you can find accommodation maybe near your job or in a location that is easy for a commute. But the house doesn't matter as much because you want that job more than anything. If you don't really care about your job, maybe you're only coming to the UK for a year or two and you'll work whatever, find that house first. Find that flat, maybe room share, whatever kind of accommodation you're looking for. Find that first in the neighborhood that you really want and something that makes you feel really happy and excited, and then find the job afterwards. But the main thing is pick which one that is more important to you, do that one first, and then do the second one afterwards. In terms of flat hunting itself, things like spare room, hostels, Airbnbs are all decent options for short term while you're trying to find that job. So if you decide that you want to get the job first, you can use these services to just live in temporarily, then you get that job, then you can start finding a flat in that area or in a good commute. The one thing I know for properties in larger cities, especially London, is if you view a property and you like it, you need to tell them right then and there. Like, be aggressive, be up in it, like be very upfront that you want it, because places go so fast. Maybe less so in some of the less populated areas, but definitely in the big cities, you gotta be aggressive. As a Canadian, my first reaction is kind of like play hard to get maybe, like call them back in a couple days, be like, yeah, you know, I am interested in that property. But in the big cities here in the UK, especially London, you will never find a place. It just won't work like that. You gotta be aggressive, tell them right away if you like a place so you can get the ball rolling. The other thing to keep in mind, I guess, is the names of properties are different here in the UK than in Canada or the US, as like most people that ask me this question tend to be Canadian or American. So you have a flat, which to me is more like an apartment. You could have like a terraced house, which is like a townhouse in Canada. End of terrace is nice because you're like the end of the townhouse. You probably don't have the money, but here a detached house, at least down in the south, is very rare. Very rare to have a fully detached house, where in Canada, in the US, especially just in the regular towns and stuff, it's almost guaranteed that you're gonna be living in a detached house. We just have a lot of them. It's just, they're everywhere. But obviously here in the UK, that's less common. You're more likely to be maybe semi-detached, attached to one other, maybe terraced, which are like townhouses, or to get a flat. So just be familiar with the terminology that you're gonna see in the property ads, so you're looking for the right thing. Maybe you decide that the job is the most important, so you're gonna do that first. People ask me, how early should I start applying for jobs? And that really depends on what kind of industry that you're in. I was looking for basically just an admin job, doing that kind of stuff, nothing too specific, fairly open-ended. So before I moved to England, I started applying for jobs about a week in advance. I couldn't do it much further than that because people would want to do interviews, and then when you say, oh, actually, I'm not in the country yet, that's just wasting a lot of people's time. So for me, in a non-specialized job, I did about a week in advance. From that, I got 2 interviews lined up for my first week in England, so the following week. I got rejected for both of them, so in the end, it didn't really matter. But at least I got the ball rolling, I got out there, I got some experience doing interviews. But yeah, definitely rejected. For my own story, I guess, I was contacted by a recruitment agency, like a temp recruitment agency. They wanted a person to fill a temporary admin job at a college, and it was ongoing. So the contract was only for 3 months, but if it worked out, they liked me, that there was enough work, they would potentially keep me on for another 3 months, and so on and so on. So in the end, that's how I got my foot in the door, was being a temporary worker for a college. It's not the most ideal scenario, absolutely, but as a foreigner with no local experience, it was a really great way to get my foot in the door, get myself some English experience on my resume, or my CV, as people tend to call it here. And then after a year, I think, of being a temp ongoing worker, I was hired outright from that college. So the college basically bought me from the agency, so I was no longer affiliated with them. I was a full-time college employee. So in the end, it worked out. It doesn't always, obviously, but doing some sort of temp agency type work might be a nice way to just get some stuff on your CV. The other thing I would keep in mind with, at least in the southeast of England, how do I say this? The traffic makes me want to kill myself. The traffic here in Kent, oh my God. Obviously the big cities like London and stuff are so much worse, but I was shocked. I was shooketh how bad the traffic is down here. So when you are looking for that nice job, or you're looking for the flat and already have a job, just really keep in mind your commute. Because sometimes I only need to drive maybe what would normally take 5 minutes, and it'll take me 40 minutes. Because just mass of humanity. So just something to keep in mind. Obviously, it will be different in different parts of England and the UK as a whole, but definitely in the larger built up populated areas like Kent, the traffic sucks. So just plan your commute accordingly, and honestly, if it really bothers you, I would turn down jobs that have a really terrible commute. I actually got an interview for a job. When I looked on the map, it wasn't that far away, and I was like, this might be decent. And then when I was talking to somebody, they're like, that stretch of motorway is crawling in the morning, and you're gonna be in that every morning. And so I ended up canceling the interview because I thought, even if they offer it to me, I know in my heart, I can't do that commute. So it's just something to keep in mind. Another big question I get from expats or potential expats is, how do I get a bank account in the UK? Good question. This is kind of like a catch-22 essentially. To get a bank account, you need a utility bill. But to get a utility bill, you need to have a flat. But to pay for the flat, you need to have a bank account. But to then make money, you need the job, which will also need a bank account, so then they can put your pay in that account, which then you use to pay for the flat. It's all just like this disgusting intertwined circle. What I found, and I'm not sure if they still do this, was that Lloyd's was one of the only banks that would let me set up an account without a utility bill. One of the first videos I ever did, way back when, I don't even know what's in it, and it's not funny and it's not my style at all, but it's still on the internet. I talked about how I got my bank account like years ago here in England. So you can watch that one if you want. But I'm not totally sure that Lloyd still allows that. It's definitely worth asking, and maybe even just being upfront with banks, just saying, you're an expat, you don't have a utility bill, what can I do, essentially. But Lloyd's did set me up with one. It was just a basic bank account. I needed my passport and my visa. You get it like a residence permit card, so it showed I was legally there, and my passport, and that was pretty much it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to get a flat and then wait a month or so till you get your first utility bill, and then take that utility bill to the bank to get a UK bank account. That means you're going to need to use your international home bank for the first month or so, which means you're gonna obviously have like international like charges if you're using your card and stuff. Or you're gonna have to bring enough cash with you to pay for things for that first month until you can get the bank account. But definitely check out if you can get an account without a utility bill, because then you can just like cut out all that hassle. Another question I get a lot is about cell phones. So here in the UK, we like to call them mobiles, which I don't really like. Now, when I first moved here, I needed a number like urgently because I wanted people to be able to call me for interviews, right? To get a job. So I went to Argos. I bought a 10-pound phone, like one of those, they look like drug dealer phones, the little black, just brick-shaped cell phone or mobile. And then with that, I bought like a 10-pound top-up card thing, and I just used that for the first while so people could contact me. It's incredibly basic, it was dirt cheap, and it was just really helpful. The problem with mobiles and getting into a contract is you need to show like that you can pay for it, and especially coming to a new country and you have no credit. Sometimes even filling out the forms online, they don't even let you. So I tried to get a new contract. So after I had that for a while, I was like, okay, I want to get a proper contract. I went on one of the mobile websites, and it got to a part where it said it needed 3 years worth of UK addresses. Well, I didn't have 3 years. So what do I do? And there's no option to do an abroad, like I lived abroad before this. So I couldn't even finish the like registration. So if you get to that point, I mean, you can call places, you might have to do things over the phone, but getting a contract in itself can be tricky just because A, you can't prove that you've lived here that long, you have no credit. They also want to check that you've been paid for X amount of months. So if you just started a new job, you'll get rejected. It's tricky. What I ended up doing with this bad boy is I bought an iPhone outright, and then I have a top-up plan sort of thing with 3, which is like a mobile provider thing. So every 30 days I have to top up my phone. It's 15 pounds. I get 3,000 texts, 3,000 minutes, and 5 gigabytes of data, I don't know. And honestly, for me, it's basically like having unlimited. I'm never gonna text more than 3,000 to like non-iPhones. I'm never gonna talk to someone for more than 3,000 minutes, and I never use up the 5 gigabytes. So for each month I pay 15 pounds, and I just have to do it manually, which is kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world. So my suggestion, check out using a throwaway type phone at first just to get yourself a mobile number. Then if you do want to have a contract, you're gonna have to wait a couple months until like you have work experience, like to show that you can pay for a contract and a phone sort of thing. And also you might just have to call the places to get set up, which is kind of difficult because you have to call a company when you're trying to buy a phone so you can call people. But just because you're a foreigner, the forms online don't always work. So that's fun. Otherwise, you can do what I did, buy a phone outright and then either pay for a SIM-only contract, or like I have, I just pay 15 pounds a month and I have no contract. It just goes away when it's done. So, but other than that, I think those are the main things. Getting a flat, getting a job, bank accounts, mobiles, and where to live in the UK. I hope that helped. I hope, did it help at all? Maybe even just a little bit? If there are a lot of questions that you guys still have, I'm more than happy to make another video with another handful of like new expat questions. So just let me know. Just let me know what to do, okay? And I'll do it. Overall, your first month in England and the UK in general is gonna be really scary. I'm telling you right now, terrifying. But it will be so rewarding if you just give it time. And then once you sort out where to live, where to get a job, all that stuff, everything else is easy, you know, for the most part. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!